This is Rob Fredette with the podcast HODGEPOD. Welcome. I have another awesome guest on this podcast. He is Dan De Filippo, and he has been gracious enough to join me. He's a Hollywood producer, author of the upcoming book, Montauk Days. It's a surf-infused retro adventure based on true events, but he has a great career in film. He's not not two, but three Emmys for his work. He's got the hat trick, and he founded the company Pipeline Entertainment in 2007, but I'll let him talk about what he has done with that company because it's really great company in the Hollywood industry. And Dan De Filippo, thank you so much for joining me. It's an honor that you're on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Rob. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So first of all, I'd like to have my guests introduce themselves. I'm looking forward to talking to you, but just introduce yourself to my audience, please.
Dan De Filippo. I'm a writer, producer. I also manage people in the industry. I'm based out of New York, but I did live in LA for years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it, you know?
That's pretty awesome because the company you have is like, it's a major company. You've got Pipeline Entertainment, Pipeline Talent, and Pipeline Publishing Factory. So talk about those three entities because I'm juggling a lot of hats there. So talk about that.
Right. So I based it on the William Morris kind of big agency model where you represent people, but you also package film, television, documentaries, and you work with your clients also in publishing. You kind of cover everything, which is what we do. We cover everything for our clients. The only people we don't represent are actors, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So Pipeline Entertainment is the producing arm of the company that we run all film production, documentary production, TV production. You know, we've done commercials for the US Open, the NBA All-Star Game, all sorts of stuff. We did a promo for the Samantha Bee show, which was great. We got to recreate the cantina scene from Star Wars, but with Samantha, the comedian, as like a fumbling Jedi. And that one actually played in movie theaters ahead of one of the Star Wars movies to kind of fake out the audience thinking that was Star Wars. You know, really, really fun day that was. But yeah, the management part of the fence is we represent producers, writers, directors, editors, cinematographers, production designers. So everybody you need, all key crew really, everyone you need to put something together. And then the publishing arm, in the past, we've worked with other publishing companies and book agents on our clients' books. So we did about 3 of those over the years for our clients. And with this book, you know, instead of having to go through that process, which can take 2 years, because everybody, when you submit to a literary agent, they have to read the book, they have to share it internally. You know, it was like, let's just open a publishing arm. You know, we've done this before, man, you know? So that's what we did. And you know, voila, here's the book, right?
Mm-hmm.
It drops June 19th, which is great. We're just doing one final edit. It's a proof copy. Now we're starting to obviously roll out doing press and podcasts and such. So
we'll talk about the book as well. Montauk Days, as you said, drops June 19th. But talk about how you got in the industry, because I always like to see you're in a very well-established company, Pipeline Entertainment. So how did you get your start to where you are now? Because all that hard work paid off.
Yeah, it's interesting. Straight out of college, I was a journalist out in the Hamptons for like a really big magazine. And the thing with the Hamptons, when you get into the winter, it's a ghost town. It's horrible, you know? So one of my college buddies was moving to LA and I had gone cross country before. He hadn't. So he asked me if I would come with him, you know? And so long story short, we went cross country, got settled in Venice Beach. And over the course of maybe 5 or 6 months, we convinced 30 other friends to move to LA, you know, from the East Coast. So all these people obviously slept on our couch at one time or another, you know. I think at one point we had like 16 people living in a 3-bedroom, you know. Like, guys, you got to get a job now, you know? Uh, so my first job in the industry out there, I worked for the producers on the tentpole film Wind Talkers about the Native American code talkers, the World War II movie. And it's funny because I got that job. I was surfing in Manhattan Beach, and a giant set was, the outside sets were coming in, and me and this one other guy, because everybody was on the inside, you have to pack out when that happens, or else you get pounded, So me and this one other guy made it. Now we're sitting out there, and we're chatting. I'm like, I'm from New York. I want to get into the industry more. I was writing at the time for another magazine. And he said, I know producers who were looking for an assistant. And he gave me their number in the surf break. Wow. And that you memorized numbers. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So as soon as I got out of the water, went back to the apartment, made a phone call, interviewed, and all of a sudden I'm working for these like major producers for free, I might add, but it was worth it, So from there, I went to Genesis Literary Agency, which doesn't exist anymore. They got bought out. And from Genesis, I went to the William Morris Agency in LA. And I was basically in their trainee program where you work for the head of every department, like picture talent or screenwriting, TV, scripted reality. They basically have you work in every division. So you learn all of the divisions, and then you graduate to be an agent, if you're lucky, I should say. Not every. But in the meantime, I had to come back to New York for some family stuff. So I transferred through William Morris, LA to William Morris, New York, which was good because I actually worked in the book department, like commercial voiceover, music, and I rounded out that kind of part of it. But I didn't want to be an agent and do one thing. You know what I mean? So I opened Pipeline where we could do all of those things and just kind of hit it boots to the ground. Like within a year, we were producing a Last Day of Summer feature film, And it's just been going and going since.
Wow. That's
kind of wild.
Yeah. I saw you had mentioned you'd done some work for the NBA. I watched those. It was the slam dunk contest from 2015. It was the Greek Giannis, Zach LaVine, and Victor Oladipo. And I can't believe that was 10 years ago. Giannis looked so young, but those were great promos for the slam dunk contest.
Yeah, they were a lot of fun too with that marching band. I mean, it's days like that, or like Xavier Dolan's movie, The Death and Life of John F. Donovan. Like the day at the office was, we have to rig a helicopter with 75 millimeter film cameras and go up in the air around New York City for aerial shots. It's like, you can't imagine this stuff. Or even the Castle movie, Dementia 13. Like that was my office for 2 months, It's crazy.
Yeah. And you had mentioned the Dementia 13 movie. That was actually a remake of Francis Ford Coppola's. I've seen the movie. It's a great movie. If you want a thriller movie, you want to be on the edge of your seat watching it, it's a great movie. You mentioned before we got on, you had to look for hundreds of castles. You nailed that one. It was totally, totally perfect.
It was so perfect that when I brought my director to go look at it, he said, act like it's not perfect. Not get overly excited. This is the one, but they can't know it's the one. It's smart, But finally, we were coming back from the Singer Castle, which is like the Singer, the sewing machine family castle way upstate, which is beautiful, but it's on an island. It would have been a disaster logistically. But, that was like castle number 99 or something for us. And we were driving back in my Jeep, and I said to one of my assistants, we should look for somebody who's trying to sell a castle, instead of trying to rent one that is like a thing. And that castle was for sale.
Wow.
Which was crazy. And it's right in Connecticut, so it's close, Yep. And it was perfect for that movie.
Yeah, that movie, I'll tell you what, I love the actors and actresses in that movie. You produced that movie, right?
Yeah, I produced it and co-wrote it with with Justin Smith. And, the original takes place at a castle. That's why we had to find a castle, And the studio was like, we know you're not going to be able to find a castle. And I'm like, hold my coffee. We're getting a castle.
Man.
But yeah, we kind of turned it on its ear a little bit. It's, it's different than Coppola's original for sure. But it's interesting. We just delivered the sequel. The sequel's for that movie.
Right.
Which is wild. Yeah, I just finished writing it with my co-writer like a week ago. So we're getting into that whole mode now that we have the script. It's great. It's like, I don't know if you remember from the film, but like the matriarch is trying to sell the castle. She wants to make it into an orphanage, and the family's like, you can't do that. So in this one, John Halloran, who survives, kills, and the family. This one, he has fled to Italy and opened an orphanage because he's guilt-ridden. So it's called Dementia 13 Redemption.
Wow.
And he's like way featured in this new script. And he's on this journey of trying to heal himself because of what he has done. But lo and behold, there's some really bad things going on at this orphanage.
Oh, oh my!
Think like Spanish Inquisition cult kind of things going on at this castle.
Wow.
Yeah, people are like, we fished it out to about, I don't know, 10, 12 people we trust or, to read it thus far, including Chris Ryan, who played John in the other movie. He read it in like 3 hours and he's like, don't even call my agent. I'm in.
That's awesome. He was awesome in the movie. I also liked Dale, the actor who played Dale.
Yeah.
He was great. He just could never decide what to do. And he got Kane and Carl mixed up. I thought that was funny. I thought that was great. And I like the bad guys in the movie as well. They were awesome. I like when they went to go buy some ammo at the gun shop and he said the money in the cash register, not a place to do that, but
it's not. It's funny because in the original script, we had it written in that it was a gas station, And then I was up on site working the weekend as a producer does. And, I had gone to all these gas stations in that area and they were on the fence. And I was passing, like headed to the next one to see if we locked the location. And I passed that gun shop and I'm like, if these guys go for this, we're switching it to this gun shop. Yeah. It works so much better,
Yeah.
So I forget the guy's name because it was a while ago who owned the gun shop, but he was so cool. It's like, here, just give me $500. When do you need the gun shop?
I like those guys that are driving up in that nice car and they got the rock and roll music. And then one of the guys in the back, he gets shot and they're still playing the rock and roll music. I liked it when they went from the car to the inside the gun shop and they had country music on. So it was kind of like it went from hard to soft. And then,
yeah, totally.
It was, I like that. That was very, very good. So
there's 2 fun facts with that, actually. So that car, my brother restored from the tires up. He had finished it 2 weeks prior to us going to shoot that movie. And I needed a hot car and they're very expensive. And he's like, why don't you just use the GTO? I'm like, do you understand what we're going to do with this car? He's like, it's just a car. And then the music playing in the car is my old band.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, NFU, Notes from Underground. So there's a whole family thing going on there.
That's cool. So when you were driving alongside the road, you saw the gun shop, you made like a instantaneous decision for that? Because that works perfect.
Yeah, then once I secured it, which I did pretty immediately, we had the schedule already, gave him my dates, I just went back to the house that I was staying in and just rewrote the scene as a gun shop instead of a gas station,
Yeah, that was great. You also did produce another movie, Catskill Park, which I really enjoyed. It's kind of like a sci-fi thriller. I thought it was great as well. It's like a firsthand account of The Office and then going up to upstate New York, I believe it was, and they were just out there in the cold and camping, and then bad stuff happens. That was very cool. That were awesome.
Yeah, we invented a camera to shoot that movie, which was cool, like a whole new camera rig. And the funny thing about that movie is that we went up to shoot in late October. We actually shot it in New Hampshire. Day 2, it snowed 3 feet. It was the great Halloween storm.
Oh, I remember that. Yes.
And there was no snow in the script. So my director's freaking out day 1 because we're, looking at the weather and everything. And I asked a local, you think we're going to get that much snow? And he said, you see the bee's nest across the street, how high it is? They're not supposed to be that high. Bees know, right?
Wow.
So I knew we were going to be in some trouble. So again, like while they were shooting, I immediately wrote snow into day 2. We kind of shot that movie a bit chronologically for the beginning of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Because we started in New York and then we went up, And so I had the actors just while they're trekking in, how they're talking about, it's not going to snow, That was all like the day before put into the script. Wow. Movie making, right?
Yeah. Wow. That's unbelievable. It snowed. I think if I remember correctly, when it snowed that day, I think the Patriots played the Tennessee Titans in a snow game when Brady was a quarterback, if I'm not mistaken, but I may be wrong. I remember there was a big snowstorm in October. I lived up in Massachusetts 30 years ago, and we used to get snow. I remember getting snow May 10th. So it still snows up there in May and then as early as October. So that's pretty cool. I like that. It was filmed in New Hampshire, right?
Yeah. Hillsborough, New Hampshire.
I missed the New England area up there, but yeah, that was a great movie. So if you want to watch both of these movies, you can get them on the streaming services. Really, really awesome. So talk about your book, Montauk Days, because this is a book that you had done. So talk about that if you would. As I said earlier, it's a surf-infused novel of youth, rebellion, and self-discovery based on a true story. And talk about that as you would, please, because again, it comes out June 19th.
Sure, I would love to. So the gist of it is, when I was 18, it was that first cross-country trip that I mentioned. Like after my first year of college, I drove across the country, the northern route, and in San Francisco was going to go south and end up in San Diego, where a friend from college, I was going to work there for like, a month and a half, 2 months for the summer, and then go back to school in the fall, But a cab T-boned me in front of the First Tower Records in San Francisco and totaled the car. So now I'm stuck in San Francisco and there's no way I'm calling home to get help, But you run out of money when you're stuck in San Francisco, you know what I mean? So I finally called home and asked my parents to wire me some money. And they're like, yeah, sure. With, 15% interest to be paid in 1 month, one of those. But, so I got a one-way ticket back to New York, but my last night in San Francisco, I was staying at the Presidio Youth Hostel. There was a flyer on the wall that Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters were playing the Fillmore West. Ken Kesey is the guy, and the Merry Pranksters, they started the psychedelic revolution in the 60s in San Francisco. Like they did, Tom Wolfe wrote a book about them, The Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. Like Kesey wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, So I'm like, that's a great thing to go do, And I ended up meeting him there and, had a conversation with him that kind of blew my mind. I flew back to New York and decided to grab my surfboard and a backpack and hitch. It's usually like a 2.5 hour drive to hitchhike to Montauk and just figure it out, On the way, these surfers stopped on the Long Island Expressway and stole my surfboard and left me stranded. Yeah. They're like, throw your board in the back and get in. I put my board in the back and they were like, late. So Montauk. Yeah, exactly. Who does that, right? So that's where it kind of kicks off, and it's just about navigating kind of an unconventional lifestyle, just literally sleeping on the beach for 3 months, finding my surfboard, getting it back, meeting the locals, and grooving into this kind of reflective state along the way of what life should be, what it shouldn't be, and just kind of thinking about, how do you want to be? How do you want to live?
Mhm.
That's not quite as conventional as as our parents lived, so to speak. And then there's like some really fun stuff that goes on as well, I don't want to give too much of it away because it's as you read this book, we have about 150 people pre-reading it right now. And most of them start in January. So we're getting all the feedback now. And they're like, holy cow, absolutely loving it. And the fun fact about this book is I lived it when I was 18. I wrote the first manuscript in my early 20s, starting in New York, finished it in LA, and then lost it for 3 years. It was gone. And my sister, who used to visit us a lot in LA, asked me about the book, like during the pandemic, basically. Mm-hmm. And I told her it's gone. Like I lost it. It's gone, And she said, I have a hard copy of your book.
Oh,
and she cursed. Yeah. So for the pandemic, and now I'm reading like my 20-year-old self, you really have to edit your 20-year-old self. I cut like over 100 pages off the book because I had time during the pandemic, and my sailboat was in the water. So I'd go to the sailboat and just edit. Now it's spilling out into the world, it's cool.
Wow, that's pretty cool going out to your sailboat, man. That's awesome. That must have been peaceful while you were doing this.
So peaceful, yeah.
That's awesome.
It was really like the perfect place to do it. It's like going from, living the book, literally sleeping on a beach for months, to editing the book on sailboat. It's like a full circle kind of thing,
Yeah, so you've come a long way from getting your surfboard stolen by some jerks far now. So you ever go back and think about your career as it has evolved? Because you've been in some great productions. You've produced some great movies. Another one was The Death and Life of John F. Donovan as well, right?
Yeah, that was a trip, that movie. All-star cast. Like we had an
all-star.
Yeah. I mean, we had to cut Jessica Chastain out of that movie because it was too long. That's how all-star the cast is.
Yeah. Ace Harrington of Game of Thrones, Natalie Portman, Susan Sarandon, Kathy Bates, Thandie Newton. That's top notch.
Top notch. And then Xavier Dolan, amazing director. So that movie, it's a big movie. It filmed all over the world: Canada, Prague, England, I think France, LA, and New York. It's a really big production. So I produced the whole New York leg of it, which, involved Central Park, the FDR, aerials, and it was shot on 35 millimeter and 75 millimeter film, which is unheard of unless you're making like Transformers these days. So that in and of itself, because nobody uses that stuff anymore, it was so hard to find cameras to take that film. And then there are no more film processing labs on the East Coast. We had to send the stuff to somewhere in the Carolinas, I think, if I remember right. It's crazy.
That's unbelievable. We'll go back to talk about your book a little bit later on. I've had some directors and actors on my show and producers on my show acting. And filmmaking is hard work because you have all these entities and all these people working in different sections and they have to collaborate. And one thing I always find out is pretty funny is I've learned is background actors are very important. I talked about that to every guest I have. Background actors are very important to films, are they not?
Oh, yeah, completely.
I wouldn't be doing it because I'd be looking at like Leonardo DiCaprio or Tom Cruise. I'd be looking over. I wouldn't be a good background actor, but it's pretty interesting because when I watch movies now, I watch background actors to see if they're doing their background stuff. So, but yeah, the filmmaking is a huge, or not ordeal, but it's a huge conglomerate of all these entities within the film.
Oh, completely. And it's funny, especially with the bigger projects when you're producing, it's like, you're basically, some of the people that you have rehired, that you've worked with before, but you're basically in charge of like 300 strangers, and you have to hold them all together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, thank God I have a degree in psychology as well,
Wow. Because, yeah,
Because it gets hairy, you know what I mean?
yes, you got to deal with different personality types and deadlines. I've learned so much about film talking on this podcast. I went to Maryland. I was in radio, TV, film a major, and I took some film classes. And the only film I did is it was an 8mm. I had a chase scene with a couple of my buddies from the University of Maryland. I did a chase scene of an apartment, and they were running and pushing the door out and running to a car, and people like what's going on? That's the only. I have to find it, but that's the only film. I'm sorry I didn't pursue it so long after I left college. But
I would love to see that. That sounds awesome.
People were. I got to find. I don't even know it was on. We had to do it in a theater, but
you can have that transferred to like a DVD or a digital file now.
Yeah, I have to find that. It was funny because they were running downstairs on an apartment. I had them running down the stairs of the apartment, and then low angle with them pushing the door out, running out of the apartment, and they're running down the sidewalk, and like people were driving by, like what's going on. So it was like we did it for about an hour, but I have to find it. I hope I do, but I think it's gone. So,
hey,
but
I don't know. You might find it like on the book, right? I never find this, like.
So Montauk Days, you might make a movie on. You could do a screenplay for it, right?
Oh yeah, there's already interest. It's nuts. And it's like, I'm almost happy that I lost this book because I think if I tried to push it out into the world in my mid-20s when it was ready last time, you grow as a writer, you grow as a person. And particularly with all the work that I've done in film, TV, and documentaries, and that whole journey helped to edit this book, Whereas if I tried to do what I have done on the page with this book back then, it wouldn't be as cinematic. It wouldn't be as tight. It wouldn't be as, like the voice would be different, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And, a lot of the people who we've had pre-read this book are in the entertainment industry because I know a ton of people, and I've already had people inquiring about the movie rights. The book's not even published yet. It's crazy,
Awesome. You'll have to pick that. You'll have to put you'll get the first say who hopefully will be the stars in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I would play a background character, somehow I sneak into all of the movies I work on. They're like, Dan, get in there, Even in, in Dementia 13, when he's running with the axe through the tunnel.
Yeah.
That's me.
What?
Yeah. I had to stand in for Chris. And then the other one, when he's outside, that move, that ding, that's me.
Oh, was it really? That was like,
because Chris and I are the same height.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm telling you, everybody here, if you're listening to this, Dementia 13, get it on Amazon. You can rent it or buy it. I assure you, you're going to get scared to your gore watching it. It was an unbelievable thriller. And I always felt it was just like the whole family was just like dysfunctional and everybody was out for the money in some respect.
Right.
And it was really like, the mother kind of seemed like off a little bit, but she knew what was going on.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we were going for.
Yeah.
And then that kind of metaphysical thing going on with her as well, with the daughter Kathleen,
Yeah. The one part I liked in the movie is when one of the bad guys went upstairs because he heard the little child like laughing.
Yeah.
He went in there, then the door closed.
Yeah.
I love the music, the little sound effects when they opened the closet and went underneath the bed, like everything was okay. And then he got up and all the dolls, I'm like, too much. And and then when he ended up perishing, all the dolls like looking at him, I said, whoa, man, that was intense. I had to go back and watch that scene again because I wanted to see, because that was good. They weren't such bad guys after all.
Yeah, totally. Right. I mean, that scene is a pretty cool movie for sure. I actually, for the sequel starts at where that movie ends. So it starts on John Halloran, and you know how we come out of the castle and then lead up the wall of the castle. That's where the next one starts.
Wow.
It's like a direct, and then the Italian villa thing. It's it's there's a whole intro sequence, but then it's basically Italy 1 year later.
He played that. Christopher Ryan played that great. He was awesome in that movie.
Yeah, he's awesome.
At the beginning of the movie, it kind of kept you off guard what was going on, and then it was like they kind of like, okay, this is going to be an action-packed movie. That's what I loved about it. So, if you would talk about some of your inspirations, maybe in the film industry as you were an up and coming, but now you're not. You're definitely well established and great company, working with some A-list folks. So, what was it like? Some of your inspirations, like movies, directors, as you were growing up?
Growing up, I was really into Star Wars. I loved Star Wars as a kid, like had all the stuff. And so I guess that would be number one. But it was also that time when, I don't know, I'm 49. So, in the mid 80s, right? When all those amazing movies were coming out, like Jaws, Indiana Jones, The Goonies, Star Wars, Nightmare on Elm Street,
Yes.
13th. Like, it was like absolutely amazing, the stuff that was being put out, like one was better than the next kind of thing. And then, other directors like Stanley Kubrick, love, obviously Steven Spielberg. I mean, in that same span of time, E.T. came out, I mean, that's when cinema was just golden. It wasn't all, superheroes and,
Yeah, I remember, one of my all-time favorites. I've said this before. The ending of E.T. is one of the all-time greatest endings of any movie. That it's just, well, every time I see it, I go, wow, it's just amazing.
yeah, totally.
The last 10 minutes just blows me away. I get goosebumps watching it every time. It's just tremendous how that movie ends. But yeah, E.T. was huge. And you mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street. I remember one scene there with Freddy Krueger. Crazy. I remember when he says, he yelled, "Nancy, no running in the hallways," or something. I remember that line from the movie, but I'll have to go back and watch some of those. But those were some great movies. And you said Indiana Jones is really unbelievable when you see like Harrison Ford in his younger days. You see these actors in the younger days. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it completely is. And it's fun. Like I got to meet Harrison when I worked for yeah, I mean, it's LA. You're working for like a gigantic agency, meet all of those people. But then like even the 90s was kind of the resurgence of the indie, Yeah. So I guess, the entertainment industry, for films in particular, go through phases, like different genre phases. Right now, I think we're still in the superhero thing a little bit, which is okay. I never was really into Marvel so much or anything, but I'm really psyched about the sequel to Dementia 13 because, this it's a little more layered, I think we'll have more resources for this one. And people are really digging the script. And I guess inspiration for me, what kind of I've focused on coming up when I got into the business. So, I knew nobody in the business. I mean, at all, growing up in New York, no idea. But I kind of focused on the business end of it, but read everything, So I'm working for, the head of talent at William Morris. We like represented, John Cusack, Gus Van Sant, Yeah. So you're doing that. That's your job. But there's so many scripts that are coming in. You just read everything. Mm-hmm. Also, all of the contracts that are coming in. You know what I mean? That's how you learn the business. I mean, it's really the agency world when you're coming up is really a good place to be if you want to eventually produce. Now, if you want to be a cinematographer, you have to go shoot, right? You want to be a costume designer, you got to be high into fashion trends, periods, But to produce, to be like a kind of a writer, producer, even a director, because you get how it works behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in fact, when I moved back to New York, a lot of people that I work with, they didn't come up that way. So you had to explain a lot to them,
Mm-hmm.
like, this is what a back end deal is, and this is what this is, and this is what it is, and this is why they're going to do that. And, so and frankly, film schools don't really teach that part of the equation, which is the number one part of the equation they should be teaching, But yeah, to come up in the industry is really good to do a little bit of both. Like, come up on the business side of the fence, but PA on weekends on other projects, or to get the physical experience of it. You got to do both, and you got to do a lot to learn it all, really.
Yeah, and your company, Pipeline Talent, has certain areas: cinematographer, costume designers, editors, hair, makeup, production companies, production designers, writers, directors, producers, and showrunners. Covers everything but the actors. That's pretty much the people behind the scenes.
Right.
And what's great about movies too, like Dementia 13 and also Catskill Park, is like when you see the final product, chemistry is so important with actors and the people behind the scenes, and it definitely shows in these two movies.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm happy that came across.
It's very important. I mean,
Yeah.
The movies, but then the movie, you can just tell, like, this movie here, Dementia 13, the actors were totally, like, it was just totally engaged. They were tremendous, and you could just feel like the emotion and the tension in the rooms. And there was some dark humor, which I loved. But
yeah,
it was totally awesome.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate that. Wait till you see the next one.
I cannot wait.
It's going to be a minute, but.
Well, let me ask you about the company. So I'd also noticed that you've also produced from Pipeline, your company, for A&E Networks. You did an A&E biography for Melanie Griffith. How does that work when you get to do that? And maybe the NBA, do you have to pitch yourself, or does some of these companies come looking at you or asking you to do it?
Depends on the project, really. We got a call for the A&E projects, for example. They had a whole series of them that we did on celebrities. And for those, what they wanted to do was update previous shows they had done. So shoot all new stuff, because those people have done more stuff since. So we did the recuts of those. So essentially we packaged and produced, the new version.
Mm-hmm.
So it was cool because we had the old footage, which was kind of like an act 1. And then we produced the new act 2 and 3 kind of thing, like the Knicks Poetry Slam stuff. We bidded on it over at MSG and then packaged it. Let me see. The other aims, the investigative report stuff we did.
Mm-hmm.
A&E called those because we did such a good job on the biographies. They're like, hey, can you guys do this for us now? And that was from start to finish. So it really depends,
Yeah, it's awesome though.
The production companies like us because we're a one-stop shop. We represent all these people. So it's very easy to be like, we trust this guy. We could put this guy here, this woman here, and package the entire production,
So for instance, you did the 2015 Slam Dunk Contest contestants with Giannis, Zach LaVine, and Victor Oladipo. So how long did that take when you were doing you did the video for it? How long did that take to put everything together for those little snippets there, the 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes for those snippets?
I shot all those in about 2 weeks.
Wow.
But the pre-production was 3 months, Yeah. And we represented at the time, the director, producer, editor, location person, we packaged it all and then just oversaw everything,
That was, man, it's amazing all the work just for a small package like that. Just like you said, pre-production and then shooting and post-production.
Yeah.
Must be nice when you saw the final product because it was really awesome.
Came out great. Yeah.
It really came out really, really good. Yeah, I mean, Giannis looks so much younger than he does now. It was like, whoa, like almost 10 years ago. So talk about too as well, I'm big into the 80s, and before I got on, you're big into the 90s. So what's some of the 90s? I like about watching movies real quick is like when you see movies from the 80s and 90s, you see that time in history, the dress, the cars, no phone.
Yeah.
Some movies. I always like that nostalgic look about, watching movies back then.
Completely. I love period films in general. They are very hard to do. We actually just did a short film actually this time last year just to help out friends, but it was like 1940s, post World War II. We had to get an antique train station with a train, cars from the period, clothing. It was nuts, but we did it all, That was a fun day with the cars and the train station. We shot it for a couple of days upstate, actually, but yeah, I mean, it is funny, like the different looks of the different decades of film in general. I mean, the 90s, I think, are defined more so by Tarantino, Pulp Fiction, that kind of thing. The 80s, everything smiled. You know what I mean? I think David Lee Roth said that once.
Yeah,
he's right. Like 16 candles, and
Breakfast Club, and
exactly
all those 80s, the 90s turned a little bit. You had more of like the person like against the establishment, like Eddie Murphy, Beverly Hills Cop.
That's great.
Another 48 Hours, those movies. Then you had, Schwarzenegger with the Kick-Ass movies.
Yeah.
And you had, what else? You like the feel-good, exactly. They're all feel-good movies, and that changed in the 90s because 90s was a little bit darker.
Yeah, and I think it was skewing more towards, not at the studio level. The studio level is always affected a little bit by the independent projects, in a sense, that do well, right? But yeah, I think in the 90s, when indies were really starting to make money, they were all a little darker. And I think those filmmakers were getting a little darker because, everything shouldn't smile so much, Like, there's another side of being that we need to go explore,
That's awesome.
All cinema is great.
It is. It's totally, totally awesome. So Montauk Days is coming out on June 19th. You'll be able to get that book, and Dementia 13 will have a sequel, it looks like. So that's awesome too. And then also Montauk Days could also have a movie as well. Dan has been giving us a little scoop here maybe, which is awesome. And I really have enjoyed this conversation. What else would you like to talk about as far as like movie that maybe we not have covered?
I think we covered what we need to cover, really, I mean, we're looking forward to really getting into these new projects. We also actually have a TV series called Matilda, which is in development right now. Long story short, she was like the Joan of Arc of Italy. Like, it's a historical TV series, based on facts. So that's percolating. And then, we're just right now focusing on the book and the sequel to Dementia 13.
Yes, absolutely. So the website is pipeline-signtalent.com. If you go on that website, you'll see all of the work that Dan De Filippo's company has done, which is extraordinary. And you'll really get a good feel for what his company is about. Dementia 13's out there. Go watch it. It came out 2017, and then Catskill Park came out about a year later. Dan De Filippo, I know you're a busy person, and I can't thank you enough. I'm honored that you came on my podcast tonight, and I hope when Dementia sequel comes out, you'll come back on, because I would love to have you back on.
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. It's fun to talk about all this stuff and the new stuff.
Absolutely. You were awesome.